Forgotten City, Chapter 6. Freeze! Kobe hissed. The others obeyed, backs pressed against the wall and eyes wide to the whites, as the tendril tested the air. Across its length, Kobe saw the rows of tiny, serrated thorns like teeth. It jerked suddenly, rearing higher, and the boy in front of Kobe tensed. Kobe's own skin was covered in sweat from the rush up the stairs. He just hoped that chokers couldn't taste fear too. The boy in front of him was trembling, but everyone else's limbs were perfectly still. Kobe could see the tall girl's eyes moving toward the door. Don't do it, he thought. You'll never make it. The choker plant swayed back and forth, bumping into the crib, then rose. As it slipped through the window, Kobe saw it was one good foot across at the root, easily thick enough to crush any one of them if it latched on. The tip reached the door, paused, then doubled back, clinging to the wall. Kobe realized it was coming right for his head. He held his breath, knowing he had to move. The deadly vine closed in. Just before it reached him, Kobe bent his knees and slowly, smoothly ducked his head while still covering the mouth of the small boy. The vine passed silently over him. Then it stopped. Kobe knew he couldn't hold his breath much longer. His chest was so tight. Right when he thought he was going to burst, the choker plant retreated sinuously out the window again. Everyone breathed out together. After a few more seconds had passed, Kobe released his grip on the boy, who crossed the room quickly to stand with the other two. Kobe got a better look at his new companions. The boy was probably about 11, really pale, with freckles and sandy hair. But the two girls were older. The shorter, olive-skinned girl had a bob haircut, stark green-brown eyes set in a fierce expression, and a scattering of pimples across her jawbone. The tall girl was actually quite gangly. Her brown skin gleamed with sweat. Her black eyes pointed slightly upward at the outer corners, and she had sharp cheekbones with long, glossy black hair. Adrenaline drained from Kobe's body, making him shaky, and unexpectedly, his voice seemed to die in his throat. Do you think they're gone? The girl with the bob whispered. Nikki, was that what her friend had called her? Kobe wasn't sure if she was speaking to him or not. The older girl nodded. The boy, Fion, Kobe remembered, started to cry softly. The other guardians, said Nikki. They're dead, said the other girl, clenching her jaw. But maybe we should. They're dead. Kobe watched them argue and wonder, hardly able to believe he was actually sharing the room with other people and hearing them speak. Real kids, not much different from himself. After so long thinking he and his dad were alone. What would his dad think of it? Who are you? Kobe said, finding his voice finally. The oldest girl flashed a look at the other two. He wasn't sure what the look meant. My name's Asha, she said, then cocked her head towards the boy at her side. This is Fion. Nikki, said the other girl. And you? I'm... Kobe hesitated. This was too weird. He'd never have to introduce himself before. Never thought he'd ever have to. I'm Kobe, he managed. What are you doing out there? Asha glanced at the others. Looking for you? Kobe's heart soared. That could only mean one thing. You've found my dad? Asha frowned. Your dad? Sorry, but I don't know anything about that. The Guardians got wind of potential survivors in the city, that's all. They brought us out here to help track them down. But you're the only one we've found. Kobe's hopes died again. He tried to process what the girl was saying. Outside the city. That's where they must be from. It seemed crazy. And the Guardians were the grown-ups with you, he asked? Or asked Kobe? Not their parents, then. The ones who... How are we going to get back to the heel home if they're dead? Said Nikki. She started to go toward the window, but Kobe pushed out an arm to stop her. Hey, don't, he cried, panicked. She turned on him, shoving him back. As she touched his chest, Kobe felt a shock of electricity that threw him back against the wall. Blue sparks crackled between Nikki's fingers. He stared. How is that possible? Keep your hands to yourself, she hissed. Okay, he said, raising his arms. Just be careful by the window. He couldn't take his eyes off her hands, and he wondered what his father would make of it. He was about to ask what heel home was, but Asha spoke first. I guess we need to get back to the transport. Krenner went that way. He left us, said Nicky. He just ran away. The boy called Theon hadn't spoken yet. He didn't look great at all. His eyes seemed sunken, and he looked like he needed a good meal. Kobe wondered what rations they had. The other two looked healthy. I doubt he made it, said Kobe. Nicky glared again, like he'd said something offensive. We should go to the transport, Asha repeated. Even if Guardian Krenner didn't reach it, there must be a way to contact Heelholm from the cockpit. They'll send a rescue party. Kobe had no idea what a transport was or Heelholm. Was he supposed to know? It sounded like some kind of medical place, but home sounded safe. We need to stay put, said Kobe. 4 people out there. It's too dangerous at night. They all looked at him as if waiting for him to continue, to give them some instruction or offer an explanation for what was happening to them. You weren't even being careful, he said. What were you thinking just walking out like that? Some thanks we get, said Nicky. Kobe didn't understand. I was the one who helped them. The transport's the only way out, said Nicky. We can't just wait around here. Out of where? Thought Kobe. Asha took a deep breath. We hadn't walked far before we found him, she said. I think I remember the way. Right, said Nicky. Let's go. Kobe was so busy watching them talk that they were already out the door by the time he realized exactly what they were saying. He hurried after them. Did they not realize the dangers? He could picture his father screaming at him that traveling around at night in the central district was suicide. But maybe it was worth the risk to find the transport. If there were more adults from this Heel home base, they could help him find his dad. There'll be a back door, he said. Less chokers, maybe. Asha nodded grimly. Then the boy groaned, clutching his stomach. Asha ran to him. Theon? Theon looked at her, eyes tinged with desperation. It's the waste, Asha explained, an arm around Theon's shoulder. He suffers worse than us. The Guardians were carrying extra shots. There might be some still on the transport. The boy was clearly ill, so there didn't seem to be a choice. Kobe wondered what their shots contained. And if they had a vehicle, they might have other useful tech too. Lead the way, said Nicky. They took the stairs, Kobe up front and Asha and Theon behind, and Nicky at the rear. The silent boy seemed to have recovered enough to walk, but ever so often he'd grimace in pain. Was he mute or just scared? Kobe had so many questions, but they could wait. They reached the rear exit on the ground floor and stopped in front of it. The door was plastic, covered in mold. Thick ivy on the other side of the glass blocked any view out. Kobe thought the other kids looked unsure now. How often have you traveled outside? Kobe asked. Asha looked around at the others, and Nicky glared back silently. Never before today, said the tall girl. We don't need to go outside, said Nicky. Why would we want to? Kobe was momentarily shocked. They've never been outside? Okay, I'm going to give you a crash course then, he said. We need to keep spaced out, single file, at least 10 yards apart. Move one at a time and signal to each other when you see it's clear. Look up, down, all around you. Look again. Always be looking. Use all of your senses too. Trust your instincts. It felt odd explaining all this stuff. He was usually the one being lectured. If in doubt, don't move. Stay as still as you can. But if a predator appears, run like you've never run before in your life. Head for the nearest place you can barricade yourself in. And if there's nowhere to hide, then climb the nearest tree and wait it out. Unless it's a cougar, they can climb trees. Then, well, he trailed off. Nicky chewed her lip, agitated. Asha was staring at Kobe. The young boy nodded at him. He seemed the least afraid. Stay beneath the canopy where you can, Kobe added. Snatchers have infrared vision and heat detection. They work better at night. Let's just go, snapped Nikki. Kobe pulled open the door. It led to an alleyway that ran behind the apartment building. Trash cans were moss covered lumps, and trees crossed above them, growing in and out of the walls. But there were no choker plants. Kobe held up his hand. Okay, go now. They scurried up to the next intersection, then took turns to dart across the road to where an old railway overpass crossed. It had collapsed in the center, crushing cars beneath it. The soft undergrowth cushioned their steps. Asha paused beside a leaning row of vine coated streetlights, frowning as he looked up and down the road. Which way? She whispered to Nikki. The girl pointed south. Up there, I think. Kobe's eyes searched the trees. The sun was just beginning to come up, a faint pale haze through the canopy. Some predators preferred to hunt at dawn, so it wasn't much of a relief. With so many in the party, anything could go wrong. Too many variables, too many risks. Asha gave a signal with her hand and then began to move again. Kobe followed. The vehicle they called the transport was sitting right in the middle of the street. It was about the size of one of the Bill Gates school buses, but it looked a lot more high tech. Shaped like a squat bullet, it had two stubby wings extending from each side. That thing flies? Whispered Kobe, amazed. He wondered how anyone could have built it. Or was it scavenged for some kind of military base? Asha went to the door and pulled at the handle. It didn't open. She pulled it again. No, 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 she said. It's palm print activated, exclaimed Nikki in a loud, exasperated voice. What did you expect? Shh, hissed Kobe. Great, said Nikki. What now? Fion looked on, his eyes wide. Let me try, said Kobe, moving up to the door. It's locked, said Asha. The Guardians are the only ones who can open it. I guess Krenner didn't make it after all. Kobe took hold of the handle, gripping tightly. It's locked, repeated Nikki. Kobe tugged on the handle. He felt his sinews cracking as he tried to pull the door open. The metal dug into his palm, but he gritted his teeth and strained harder. Come on! With a shriek of metal, the handle broke away and he fell backward into Asha. Well, aren't you strong? She said. Is that the waist? I guess so, said Kobe, but couldn't tell if she was impressed or not. Good for him, said Nikki, but now we're never getting inside. Kobe had to admit she was right. He felt stupid, annoyed with himself. We have to wait, said Nikki. But for how long? Said Asha. We weren't due back for hours. By the time they realize we're in trouble and scramble another transport, then get here. She trailed off, eyes flickering towards Fion. Kobe recognized the waxy look to the pale boy's skin and the sheen of sweat. Waste exposure. His dad had looked the same way in the early stages of contamination, when the cleansers were wearing off. Fion didn't seem afraid, though, staring around at the waste wilderness with wonder. He'd seemed the most natural at moving through the undergrowth, and Kobe had often lost sight of him scurrying ahead. The young boy raised his hand in the air. A giant butterfly with multicolored patterns on its wings landed on its sleeve. Whoa, said Nikki, backing away. Fion suddenly doubled over in a fit of coughing, and the insect flapped away. Kobe took a deep breath, thinking over the options. It really wasn't safe to linger in the city much longer, especially considering none of the others were trained to survive out there, and one of the team was already suffering. He felt reluctant to leave, though. He could push on to his dad's labs. They were only a couple of hours away. But Fion's condition would only worsen, and Kobe wanted to keep these people at his side, if they could help him find his dad. I have anti-waste cleanser back at my base. Where's that? Asked Asha. West of the city, said Kobe. A few hours from here. He glanced at Fion. The boy wouldn't be able to travel all that fast, he realized, depending on how quick we can move. No way, said Nikki. I'm staying right here and waiting for the Guardians. Asha stepped up closer to her. Nick, we have to stick together. Fion might not last until the Guardians get here. Kobe saw the other girl's jaw tightened. She's just scared too. How do we even know we can trust him? She said, cocking her head towards Kobe. Kobe felt a flash of annoyance. Hey, I'm right here, he said. Doesn't she get it? I'd rather be looking for my dad than looking after them. We don't have a choice, said Asha. Fion needs a boost, and we can't just wait out here in the open. Nikki made a grunting noise, which Kobe understood to mean fine. Asha turned to him. Lead the way, Kobe.